I've got two of these spotlights which I want to fit to the Jensen. They were JMEX. They'd use 55-watt bulbs. If I put them in the normal position on the Jensen, they'd be hanging down under the bumper. I'm going to put them above the bumper, I think. I've been looking to see how I can fix these. From the forum on the Owners Club, I asked about fitting lights. Evidently, the later Mark IIIs have this particular arrangement for the mounting of the bumper. The earlier Mark IIIs, Mark IIs and 1s have a round tube. This one's a square tube. That's the main bumper bolt going through. These two here hold on a cosmetic plate, which is this bit here. I could put some brackets that come up from this bumper bolt here, and then I could mount the spotlight above the bumper there, or they would hang down here. I could mount them somewhere here, but that would mean taking, I think, that cosmetic plate off. But the other problem would be, if they were mounted like that, in order to take the grille off, I'd have to dismount these spotlights from the bracket. An alternative method, which I think might work, is the grille there is held together by a bolt, appears to be, that goes all the way through, and there's a nut there. If I bring a bracket off that nut, the spotlight will be attached to the grille. I appreciate that it is to some extent blocking airflow into the radiator if it was positioned there, but I also think it's out of the way of the main beams being slightly over there, and might be successful. With the grille off, you can see it's just held in place with a locking nut there, and there's a locking nut at the bottom, and these are all held together in the form of a pillar. It's just a piece of that builder's wall tie, which I've painted in satin black. Everything seems to be satin black on the Jensen. If this flat bar causes that nut to hit the bumper, the other option, of course, is to just produce a dog leg, so it's raised up a bit. Put the top two screws in. They went in easy. Unfortunately, the nut, when you screw up the grille, does hit the top of the bumper. So the other thing I noticed was that this moves a bit, and so what I'm going to do with it lined up is pop a self tapper in there. I'm going to have to change the brackets because the nut still just touches the chrome bumper, and I'm going to change those brackets, build two new ones that have a crank in them. For this second bracket, the first bend, I'm going to take it back to 1.5 inches. So I've drilled the appropriate hole that will take the spotlight And the first bend I'll do here. So that's perfectly upright. This second bend I'm going to do at 1 3/4 inches from this end here. By using that piece of metal, thick piece, I can use the vise to get that second bend. Definitely a hard thing to do to get these bends looking even part decent, so I'm a little embarrassed by it, but maybe you can buy them online. That would be a better option, I think. I think the overhang here is going to be adequate to give plenty of movement on the spotlight. And to drill that hole, I've now set that, and I'm just going to give a little bit of extra space, wiggle room. So I'll drill a suitable hole for this. I'll cut it roughly flush with the back of the grill, and then drill a hole there and put in a self-tapper through the aluminium to hold it so it doesn't do that. That's how they look. I'm confident the nuts will now, with this cranked bracket, will be well clear of the bumper. And there should be plenty of adjustment in them to get whatever angle and lighting I want. I was able to quite easily move Interceptor 3 badge across. That's the fog light switch, and it's this red and yellow wire that comes from the fog light switch. That goes through this plug and socket switch panel junction, they call it. I have no idea where that is. And then eventually that goes off to the plug and socket body junction, and then to a inline fog light fuse, and then that goes off to feed the right hand fog light and the left hand fog light. My understanding is you can find the connection for this hanging down by the valance. What I'm looking for is a single female bullet connector for the left hand fog light, and for the right hand fog light I'm looking for a double female bullet connector. So I ended up taking these covers off. Thought it was that one, so I cleaned that wire up. That's red and black. And then eventually right up there, this is the passenger side. Right amongst all this lot, I found this wire hanging down, and that, having cleaned that up, that is the red and yellow wire that feeds the left hand side fog light. I just need to trace all that back to try and find the wire that would feed the right hand fog light. Plastic wrapping on mine is like concrete. Having stripped all the hard black plastic off, I appear to have one random black wire going nowhere, but I appear to have these two red and yellow wires, which I would have assumed that one would go to the right hand fog light, one would go to the left, but this wire here connected to a red wire, so I'm not sure where that goes. Taking it apart though, it doesn't look like some sort of aftermarket fitting. It looks like a legit bullet connection. What I was talking about, it being connected to a red wire, I think I've picked up this red and orange wire, and that's feeding the left hand side light, although mine appears to be red as it comes out of that bullet connector. But it does, when I feel up inside, it does appear to go to the left hand side light. So that second one I think is red and orange, although it looks very close to being red and yellow to me. I still need to find a double bullet connector. And if I do look carefully, I think I can see a slight difference between the two. This one being red and yellow and that one being red and orange. Although I have now come across some more disconnected wires that also looks as if they've had a bit of a burnout issue. And I'll have to sort those out. On this side, which is the driver's side, UK, I have found the inline fuse for the fog lights. And one of the reasons I do these videos is I certainly didn't remember that I had found that and where it was. I haven't yet found the double bullet connector for connecting the right hand side fog light. So I can feel a single bullet connector in there. I can't see what colour wire that is. So if I clean that wire up, maybe that'll turn out to be a single bullet connector rather than the double bullet connector. Obviously not, because that turns out to be a black and red wire that goes to that bullet connector. So following this fuse back here, there's a lump of wire wrapped which appears to have some connectors hiding inside. So I will expose those. Well, the first one I exposed is a triple connector that would go where, I'm not sure, and what for. And yes, finally, just as in the circuit diagram, there's the double connector. So that's perfect. It's being fed from the inline fuse to the double connector, and then there's one that comes out of the double connector and goes off to the single connector on the left hand side of the car. Now I just need to test that we've got power to these and then sort out the rest of the wiring. Lovely. Testing with a multimeter, there's no power to that double connector. And then undoing this inline fuse that of course is all corroded. I just need to pull the fuse out and perhaps clean that up. The fuse, as I've removed it, isn't in any good condition. If there was a spring in there, it's gone. And measuring at that part of the fuse, the incoming part there, with all the lights on, no engine running, and because I've been messing for so long, I at least have 8.45 volts. So it appears that it's all connected. I'm going to remove that inline fuse that's down under the front balance altogether, because I have a fused relay up here. The fused relay I've already put in, that's on a separate video. What I have coming out of that fuse relay, because it's already got power in, it's already got a connection, an earth connection for the switching side of the relay. What I have left to connect up is the blue power out wire and the white positive to the electromagnet in the relay. Because my loom is partly open, I can see that I've got here a red and yellow wire. That red and yellow wire comes in here and will go off down here. All I'm going to do is open up this part of the loom and then connect in the wire, those two wires. The incoming wire from the switch at the moment carries the power. I will connect that to the white switching wire. The bit of the wire that's left that goes on down to the lights, I will connect to the power out. When I turn the fog light switch on, that will initiate the relay will kick in, and power will then go through the blue wire, down through the red and yellow wire to the spotlights in my case. Being aware of the red and orange wire that has nothing to do with the fog lights, to make sure that this particular wire is the correct wire, I've switched on the lights and the fog, and now I'll make a connection in there, and I have 10.3 volts. And out of interest, the fuse that came out is a 17 amp continuous 35 amp below, I think it is, Lucas. And the replacement for that fuse is going to be this 20 amp attached to this relay. I'm going to attach these relays, I've drilled a little hole there, along this cowling, this shroud that goes around the radiator. You have to be careful because the radiator is about a finger's width, I think, away from this shroud. I think at this point it goes over the top of the radiator, but if you drill through there you have to be very careful. And then I'll just attach all three along here. Those are the three relays now in place, serving the dipped, high beam and spotlights. So I've cut back the outer sheath of very hard plastic and exposed the wiring, and I've used just a couple of cable ties to keep the position that it was in, except I have released these wires from the cable here where it was coming down here, because my lights will be just above here. So all I'm going to do is cut the fuse holder off and attach those two wires together. I now have this double bullet connector for the right hand spotlight, and similarly this side I have the single bullet connector for the left hand spotlight. One slight concern I have is that these quick nuts won't hold the grill and spotlights as they're attached to the grill. So I'm going to make a temporary connection around here with either a large cable tie or something similar to this center pillar here that's part of the grill, so that should it come away, it shouldn't actually leave the car. I popped some LED bulbs in that I'd got, some H1s. Don't think they're that bright, but at least they work, and for whatever reason they seem to work even with just the side lights on. I guess that's normal, but they are functioning. On that basis, job done.